One of the first things I want to pull up is this item. It's out there. It's important items to remember just in general about finances on your organization. So the first thing is if you're treasurer or president and you're newly elected and you still do not have access to the cool system, make sure that registration is updated. Once the student activity office approves your registration, it does take about 2 business days for them to send us a list, and then we have to go in and manually data enter that information in there. But if you have not done a registration, make sure you get that, because your registration is what gives you access to the cool system. If you still have issues, just make sure you're looking and check your compatibility. We haven't had any issues with that for quite some time, but there for a while we were having some compatibility issues, and our developer did work through that. Excuse me. Some things to remember: things that you cannot purchase with student organization funds. You cannot purchase gift cards, gift certificates, the same thing. This is basically an IRS regulation. They consider it cash. So you cannot use student org funds to purchase those just because of tax implications on that. You cannot use your student organization funds to purchase alcohol, tobacco, any tobacco related products, firearms, ammunition, things like that. So you can't use your funds to purchase that. When you do a payment reimbursement, which I'll go through that and show you that here shortly, when you log into your cool system, which is your online banking system, just make sure you go through, and if you're working like with your SOGA account, make sure you choose that account. If you're working with, if you happen to have an office of engagement or a charity, just make sure you're working with the correct organization, the correct account. We can change and correct items if you pay from the wrong account, but it's a lot more work. And if we can just keep that up front, we're good. Any reimbursement or payment must be accompanied with an itemized receipt. If we are paying a vendor directly, then we just have to have the itemized invoice. If we are reimbursing an individual, we have to have the itemized receipt invoice that shows it was paid. And that it shows it has, whoever we're reimbursing has to be the named person on an invoice. So if you would submit an invoice that said Joe paid Freckles and the reimbursement is to Allison, we're going to question that. We need to make sure the right individual is getting the funds back. When we can get back to where we can go to restaurants and do things like that, we suggest you tip a maximum of 20%. You can go over that, but that is what Purdue really pushes, is that you need to do 20% of your bill. If you have a great wait staff, that's fine. You can work with that, but we are going to question it if you go especially too much over. Merchandise. If you're purchasing any merchandise that has a Purdue logo or trademark, it must come from marketing or come from a licensed vendor. There is a list of your licensed vendors out on marketing and media sites, so you can go out there and look through that and pull that information. When processing a payment request, there is a 2 business day turnaround for us to review and get those checks printed and ready to go. We do not send out emails or any notifications once those checks are completed. As I'm going through the cool system, I can show you how you can check to see if your check has been processed. If we have to send your payment back for some reason, you don't have that itemized receipt on there, we can't read it, which goes back when you attach your itemized receipt invoice, please make sure it's legible. If you all can't read it, we can't read it. We've had some come in that have been through the wash a couple times, and we just have to be able to clearly read it. So just make sure that's legible. When we send items back, we do give you 2 business days to respond as well. And we will give you a notice when we send it back. Receive an email notice that says, we need this, this, or this. Maybe you don't have your activity planning form, whatever the reason is, we're returning the request. It will be in that email, and we will give you a deadline that says, please respond by such and such date, and it's 2 business days out. And if you don't respond, we delete that payment request. You can resubmit it, but you have to go through that work again. I mean, we print everything out to make sure we can clearly track it, but we will delete that if we do not get a response. And again, once we're back to normal after COVID, if you are doing anything that has any kind of contracting in it, you're bringing in a speaker or performer, you're renting a venue, anything that has to have a legal signature on it, students do not under any circumstance sign that. All that comes into our office. Deirdre Ryan in our office is our contract administrator, and she will review your contracts. If the artist or whoever already has a contract, she'll review their contract to make sure everything falls in with Purdue guidelines. If they do not have their own contract, we have templates. Dee Dee will make up the template, send it to your artist and work through that, but do not under any circumstance sign a contract. Again, when we get back to normal, I feel like I'm going to say this quite a bit tonight, when we can travel again for student organizations. If you are traveling on behalf of a student organization, if you are driving, you must be RMO1 approved. It's a risk management form that just makes sure you're a safe driver, you haven't had multiple wrecks, anything like that. So just when we get to that, you can do RMO1s, make sure you're that RMO1 approved driver. If you're again driving on behalf of the university, you need to have 2 RMO1 approved drivers in the vehicle. If you are taking a van, you must be 21 years old, and not only do you have to have the RMO1 certification, you also have to have your van certification. All that information is out on the risk management website, and hopefully we can get back to that shortly in the near future where students can travel and do things again. And then the last thing, if you're raising funds to donate to an outside entity, you want to raise money for American Cancer Society, Arthritis Foundation, whoever the case may be, first of all, your entity you're donating to must be a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Your event, you must do your activity planning form, and in that you're going to be tagged to contact me, and we must set up a charity account. Any funds that you are collecting to donate to an outside charity can't run through your general account. They do need to go through that charity account. So that is just some highlights to get through of things to remember. And again, all this information is out on the Boso website. So first thing we'll go through how to do, again, out on the Boso website, there's a Word document, and there is also a PowerPoint that will walk you through on how to do a payment request in the COOL system. So the first thing you're going to do is you log into the COOL system through My Purdue. Make sure. And out here in this PowerPoint is also just some of the important things to remember. So you're going to log into through My Purdue portal, which actually this has updated. It looks a little bit different. I didn't get this PowerPoint updated. I do apologize. So your My Purdue portal does look a little bit different now, but you're going to go into My Purdue, Life at Purdue, and then Student Services. It's Boso COOL Online. When you log in, it's going to bring you to this landing page here. And this is where you'll have access to pick through your SOGA account or your Office of Engagement account, whichever account you need to be working in. This information up here is just going to be your basic information of your organization. So that's, like I said, we don't have phone numbers and that in there anymore. This is a little bit older of a PowerPoint. So you can add a logo to your store or your COOL page. You'll just click on this little piece of paper. The little piece of paper with a pencil is edit throughout the whole system. As we get a little bit farther, anytime you want to add something, the add icon looks like a little piece of paper with a sun in it. So you'll go and click on this pencil with paper, and you can go in. It'll take you to this landing page, to this page, where you can add your logo. Sorry, went blank. You can add your logo. This will give you your student organization number. So if you're ever doing like your SOGA grant application and they want your 4-digit number, this is it. Everything though we have on our system does have a pre-leading 0. So that's why you have 5 digits on here. So you can add all that information to your page. You can pull account statements from the COOL system as well. This system goes back to July of 2008 was when this system was initiated. So you can go in and you can click on your generate account statement. Once that opens, you have a begin date and an end date you can choose from. So like I said, you can go back to July of 2008 and pull all the activity since then, or you can, just pull this fiscal year, however far back you need to go. I will tell you, it takes a little bit of time for this to populate. So when you do it and you feel like you're not getting anywhere, give it a couple minutes. It is slow. So to do a payment request, you're going to log into your account you want to work with, so your general account, and you're going to click on this banking button. My arrow down button's not working real well. Before you do all that, you really want to make sure you have all your itemized invoices, receipts uploaded somewhere to where you can go pull them, scan them in, pictures of them, whatever you need to do, have them saved somewhere because you will need to pull those and attach those to your payment request. So this is a good receipt. We can clearly see it. We can clearly identify it was paid. So this would work great. Anything you upload into the system must be JPEG or PDF. Your JPEG size, I had it back here, JPEG, PDF is 6 megabyte and JPEG is 5. So just make sure your file sizes are not too big. We run into some issues there. So make sure you have everything downloaded, and now you're going to attach those documents you have saved somewhere. So you can just, especially if you're doing multiple payments at once, you can have all your unattached documents saved here, and then you can just pull them and attach them to the payment you're working on. So you're going to go to your unattached documents, and again, this little piece of paper with a sun on it is your add icon. You're going to click on that. Then it's going to take you to a page to attach. And it's just like pulling something into an email. You just go out, browse, attach, and save. Like I said, you can attach all your documents at once, and then they're just ready to go when you get to that portion of the payment request. So they'll just be lined up here in your unattached document area. One thing I do want to bring up is something we do run across quite often. If you are reimbursing an individual and say they've purchased multiple things, you can add up to 9 line items on one check. So you don't have to write a check to Joe, write 5 checks to Joe because he bought pizza, he bought office supplies. You can do those line items and make one check. We actually prefer you do that. It's just a lot easier tracking. If something would happen, it's all on one check. All the information is together. It saves you a lot of time from creating 5 checks versus 1. So once you have your documents uploaded, you're going to go to payments and process. And again, you're going to click on this add icon. You're going to search for your payee, whoever you're paying, vendor, reimbursing. So you're going to type in that individual's name, company, and you're going to select payee. It's going to bring up a drop-down box here if your organization has paid that individual or company in the past. So you can just select that payee. If your organization has not, you're going to go to this next search, which it'll take you there, and you're going to request new payee, and you're going to check payee again. This search searches the whole cool database. So maybe your organization has not paid Freckles, but somebody has. So it's going to go out there and it'll give you this drop down here, and you can select that payee from that drop down. It'll ask you if you want to attach them to your student organization, which then you can. So that way it's already in your payee backups. If you do not have, if it's a brand new payee, nobody's ever paid them, you're going to click request new payee. And this will bring you to this screen where we need the payee's information. We have to go to residences. We can't send checks to businesses. Well, reimbursements, I should say. Vendors, obviously, we can. But if we're reimbursing an individual, we can't send it to their office here on campus. It has to be a residential address is what we need. It's what we use if for some reason the individual does not ever cash their check. We do go through and do due diligence every summer for any uncashed checks. Funds that don't get cashed will end up eventually at Indiana Unclaimed Funds. So it's just our way of making sure we can try to track that person down and give them the funds that they are due. When you're filling in an address for new payee, please, please, please check to see if they have an apartment number or letter. We're pretty familiar with most of the addresses around here, and we do check against the USPS website as well. If you don't put the apartment information in there and we find out that, there are apartments there, we will kick back that payee request and say, please get us an apartment information. So just make sure if you're talking to somebody, ask them, do you have an apartment? If so, I need your number, letter, whatever it may be. Went a little too far. So once you get all this done, you're going to click continue and you'll save it. And then it's going to bring you back and it's going to pull that payee you created into your payment request. In this, if you find a payee that is correct, but their address has changed, they were in there from last year and then they've moved, U.S. students do not have access to change payee information. So what you can do is go ahead and pick the existing payee that you found with the incorrect address. In this note section, just put please change address and give us the updated address. We will update the address before we process the check. So you're going to do, like I said, you have your payee information and everything's here. So now we're going to go into our transaction details, and this is where you can add up to 9 line items, like I said, to create one check versus writing 5 checks or however many to each individual. The reason it stops at 9 is just the fitting on the check. We get too many more line items. It doesn't fit on that check stub. You can't track it. So you're going to add as many line items as you need. And then you're just going to fill in the information. So activity name, if it's a specific activity, please reference that. We are going to make sure you have an activity planning form to do your reimbursement, especially right now, things that you may not have needed an activity form in the past is required right now due to Protect Purdue and COVID. If you don't have an activity name, if it's just you're buying office supplies or whatever the case may be, that's fine. Just give us some information here. Again, activity date's going to be the same thing. If you had a specific activity, please give us the date. The more information you can provide us here, the less likely it is that we may kick this payment back and ask you, what is this for? Do you have an activity form? Please clarify. If we just get something in, paying Joe Smith $20 for office supply, what did you do? What was this? Just give us as much information as possible so we can get the payment process as quickly as possible and out. We want to get money back to people as fast as we can. Your expense account, there's going to be drop down. Just go through this and choose whatever you feel is the closest to what you're trying to do. We do audit that. So if you have something in there that's definitely not what it should be, then we will adjust that. So just do the best on this. your transaction amount, obviously however much the bill was for. Your note section over here to the side, don't put notes in there for us to see. That's more internal. That is something you all can look up later and, you know, track. If you're tracking like a specific event, you can tag it there. We only see like the first 2 words. So if you're trying to give us information, make sure you do it in the note section up here by the payee. So once you have your line items, what you're paying, you're gonna click save, or you're gonna go to your unattached documents, excuse me, and then you're gonna go through and you just click on whichever document goes with that specific payment request you're working on. So that's why I said you can have everything uploaded in here, and then, okay, you just need this receipt for that one. You click on it, click save, and it will automatically attach it to your payment request. Once attached, everything's saved. Your payments are going to go into this payments and process tab. Anything in here is what you have completed and is now on our side to audit and review. Make sure you have the proper documentation. Make sure you have your activity planning form. Go through all that and look for it. If you as president or treasurer are processing a reimbursement to yourself, a second officer must approve that payment. You can't reimburse yourself without that second approval, which I will show you how to do that. To do the second approval, it's going to come, the person that created the payment will be the only one that has this piece of paper with a pencil, the edit button. The person that creates the payment is the only one that can go in and change it. If you have a payment that needs approved by a second officer, this red check mark with a line through it is what they'll click on. It'll pull up the information on the check being processed. They can look at the attached documents. They can look at all this information. They will either approve, reject, or cancel it. I've never had anybody cancel. If for some reason that other officer rejects it, saying, hey, we didn't agree to spend this much money, it will go back to the individual that created it. They will have to adjust, and then it'll go back to the second officer will then have to approve it again. So to know if you have a payment completed, once we approve it, it goes from your payments and process tab to your payments tab. In this payments tab, if you see the request you're looking at with a document number, that payment is complete. That document number is the actual check number. If you see the payment in that payments tab, but there's no document number, the payment request is in our print queue and we will get it done today, that day. Under normal times, we print checks by 2 o'clock every day. So we tell you, you can't come in and pick up until after 2. Right now, checks are running a lot less than normal. So we are getting them done a little bit quicker, but this is one way to check. Definitely just go in and look and see if that's there. These are just some reasons on why we might kick your payment back. Missing receipts, we can't read it, it's too small. So just again, make sure you have everything legible that you need and we can read it and get it done. I guess I should back up to the beginning. If you want to pick up your check, that's fine. Actually, that's a lot quicker. We are here 8 to 5, Monday through Friday now. The office is open. We're partially staffed, but we do have somebody out front all day long. And when you do your beginning of your check request, let me back up to that slide. If you mark hold for pickup, get to the right spot. I apologize. Maybe I'll get there. Right here, if you mark hold for pickup, the check will automatically be held in our office to pick up. President, treasurer, advisor, or the individual that the check is made payable to can come pick it up. If you as president or treasurer, you have somebody in charge of social chair, whatever the case may be, if that individual needs to come in and pick up checks for you, you must email the Boso office and say, Allison's coming in to pick up this check. So we know we have your permission to hand that check to this individual. If you don't mark it hold for pickup, we will automatically mail it. Checks get mailed out the day after we print them. Our mail leaves at 10 o'clock every morning. So since we don't get checks printed until later in the day, they don't go out until the next day in the mail. When we do mail checks, we do tell you it can take up to 2 weeks to reach the destination. Like I said, it takes the next day before it even leaves our office. Then it goes through the Purdue mail system. Then it goes out and goes through the USPS mail system. So if you want it fast, you might want to come pick it up. Here are just some links for different things, the risk management, boiler link. So that is an overview on how to do payment requests. All right, so let me close out of this. All right, my little screen here. And we're gonna go into e-commerce. So e-commerce works on the same basis as your payment request through the COOL system. E-commerce you can use to collect dues, get registrations when we can again, do any kind of traveling, take trip registration money, sell merchandise. When we first opened e-commerce, we were not able to allow students to do any kind of pre-order on e-commerce. You can do pre-order now, as long as in your direction, in your description of your item, that you clearly state that it is a pre-order item, so your customers know that it is a pre-order, and you have to give an estimated date of when they'll be able to pick it up, or you're going to ship it, whatever the case may be. That is a PCI compliance. With that person just needs to know whatever they're ordering is not in stock. So again, you're going to log into it through the Purdue, My Purdue, Life at Purdue. You're going to go, it'll come up to your landing page. For accounts such as Office of Engagement, which is a grant award, and SOGA, you do not have e-commerce access to those accounts. Both of those are non-income accounts. The only funds going into it should be your actual grant. So you will not have access to e-commerce in those accounts. Once you get your storefront up, so when you do your storefront, it will again come to Boso for us to review, approve, make sure if needed, you have your activity planning form, make sure you have your income codes correct, just make sure everything's in line. And then once we approve it and it goes out to the storefront, this URL on this front page is going to be your storefront URL. So you could give this URL out to potential customers and say, go to this URL. It's going to take you to your organization's landing page. If you have multiple items on the storefront, then the individual is just going to click on your landing page for your storefront, and it'll show all your active storefront items out there then. So to create your storefront item, you're going to go to this catalog items in process. And again, if you have anything in catalog items in process, it's things that you've created that is now on our side to review. So you're going to do your add icon just like in the payment request, and you're going to add a storefront item. So to add an item, and it'll bring you up to this page, your item description is, this brief description is just local dues or whatever you're collecting. Your category will be a drop down again. You can choose that. It'll be dues, merchandise, different things. You pick whatever you feel it is. And again, we audit that. Your income code is going to be the same thing along that line, and it'll just be as close as you can get. We look through these to make sure you've got the correct income code to go through with what you're putting out on the storefront. Your item cost, are you dues $15, whatever your item cost is. And this per unit would be if you are selling just multiple kinds of things. It's usually just each, I think each and box and unit are one of the each pair and box. I was trying to remember what the choices you had. Shipping cost, if you are selling merchandise and you are giving option to ship to your customer, you as a student organization are going to have to figure out what that cost is going to be. You're going to have to figure out the cost of your boxes, whatever your postage is going to be. You decide what that shipping cost will be. And again, then you have your item unit. Not too many student orgs ship, because it is just a lot of work, but you do have that option, especially right now. So you can put a shipping cost in there. If you select a category that doesn't, we know it's not going to be shipped, dues, or anything like that, this actually will gray out your shipping cost because there is no shipping. Your start date, when you want your sale to start, your end date, when you pick your end date, say you pick February 12th, which is a Friday, your storefront will actually close at midnight on the 11th. So make sure you go out that full day. Your end date is actually midnight of the previous day. So pick your end date when you want all your sales done. This big item description here, this is where you want to put all your information that you're trying to get out to your customers. You're paying local dues, and payment of dues allows you to be part of this organization and participate in activities, whatever the case may be. But this is where you need your big description. And then this is where, if you are doing pre-sales, you need to clearly identify that this is a pre-sale. So you'll fill that information in. It's active, non-storefront item. I don't even think anybody uses that. So that's kind of not even, it's a moot point. Members only. Members only is a good thing if you're really trying to limit it to your members only. But when you check members only, it creates quite a bit more work on your end and the customer. If you have an item out on the storefront as a members only item, if I would go out to purchase that item, you say, okay, I have the storefront out, and you send out the information to all your members. I have to go out, and first I have to request to be a member, because we can't preload with all the constant changing of officers, members. I have to request to be a member. You will receive an email notification that says Kelly wants to be a member. You have to go into the cool system, check, yes, allow her to be a member. Then it'd come back to me. Then I can log in and try to purchase that item. So it's there if you need it, but just make sure it is something you really need. I've had people ask me about, well, do I want to do this for dues? If I don't belong to your club, I doubt I'm going to go online and pay dues. So, just weigh out whether you want to do that or not. Allow customer note. This will allow you to, when the customer checks out, there'll be a place at the bottom of their checkout that says, 2 of us will be attending, any kind of information you're requesting. You can limit the number. So if you want individuals to only be able to purchase one item, you can limit the number of purchases. So you can go through and fill any of this out that you want to. This little note section shows up on the very bottom of your storefront item, and I can show you some of that when we get to that. Serialize, you can serialize, especially if you're doing ticket sales. As people go in and purchase items, if I'm number 1, my receipt's going to show number 1. The next person, their receipt's going to show number 2. It's just kind of an accounting track for you as well. Once you have everything in, you're going to click continue, and it's going to bring up this next page. This page, apologize, where you can add an image. I always suggest strongly to add an image to your storefront item. It's a marketing tool. If somebody goes out there to purchase a shirt and there's no picture of what the shirt looks like or anything like that, they're not going to be as likely to purchase it. So you can go in and you can add an image to your item. You can use the inventory for a couple different purposes. Obviously, if you have your stock ready and it's all there, you go in and you create your inventory. And again, you can add as many line items, excuse me, Get a dry throat. You can add as many line items as you have. So like if you're selling shirts, you can go and then you've got small, medium, large, extra large, whatever shirts you have. But you just continue to click this add icon and it'll bring you to an inventory that you can create if you have the items in stock. If you are doing pre-sales, it helps to create an inventory as well. And I'll show you when we get to that. And when you do your inventory, partway across it says sales limit, I believe is what the category is. And that's where you put how many items you have in stock. Well, if you're doing pre-sales, you can just bump that number up to like 50 or 100. But what that does for you, if you're doing pre-sale, as everything comes, when the person goes out to purchase that t-shirt or whatever you're selling, they can pick their size from the drop down. This automatically comes into you guys through your email and that. And you can export all this information once you're done with that sale. So you can pull that information and sort. We need 10 smalls, we need 15 large. So it does help you with pre-sales as well. So make sure you do your inventory again, merchandise, if you're doing dues, things like that. That obviously is not something you're going to need. But this just kind of goes through again your information that's going to go out on the storefront. Once you have everything completed and you click submit, it's going to be in this catalog items and process, like I stated. We will review it. Once we review it, it's going to go over to this tab, this catalog items, which I don't have anything in this because this is a test site anyway, but it'll show up in your catalog items. So to get to the storefront, again, your URL will be available, but you can also go out to the Boso website, and right here under the Too Cool storefront, it will take you to the storefront. So highlighted your URL again. So this is what I mean by you want something out there on your storefront that shows, hey, this is what you're purchasing, but I am going to go to the storefront. So an individual can go out there and search by category. So if somebody just says, hey, I want to buy clothing, they can look under clothing and it'll bring up everybody that's selling anything. Otherwise, they can search by organization. And it's all alphabetical. So like I said, again, your logo has a lot to do with it. Instead of just the name, it draws your attention a whole lot more in depth. So let me find Cycling Club. Let's see what they've got out there. So they've got gloves for sale. So that takes them to the different items they have out on the storefront. The big description is what's here. So there's not a whole lot of information they have. But again, your drop down, this is where your inventory would come into play, because if I go out and I want to order a pair of medium gloves and I click on that and you had 10 pair and I'm number 11, that medium's not even going to show. It's going to take it away from the possibility. The small information or note section comes here. They don't have anything on there, so that wasn't a real good one. Let's see if I can find a good one real quick. Let's see what Dairy Club has. That's just dues. Anyway, so item is pickup only. Again, your notes up here. But if you have something in that small note section, like I said, it'll just be a line across here. So that is basically your overview of how to do your e-commerce storefront item. So now if you all are ready, I will let Allison, if she's ready, to open up for questions and see what we've got here.
Thank you so much, Kelly. So I do also want to point out that recently Kelly and I actually recorded some quick how-to videos. So it is a very expedited version on how to submit a payment request and how to add an item to your storefront. So those are out there on our YouTube for you to check out. And they're also on our Instagram page and our IGTVs. this may have already been answered, but Kelly, that link that you showed us for the storefront, we could take that link and put it on our website, like our student org website, and have people direct link into our storefront to purchase items, right?
Yes, yes. And that will take them, like I showed you, where it just says Dairy Club or whatever your club, and then they click on that if you have multiple items. So yes, that URL can go out on their organization site.
If I was having an event where, you know, we were selling, I'll make something up, like Valentine's Day kits, because that's coming up. And I also wanted to give people the opportunity to pay via credit card, since we're only allowed to accept cash or checks in person. I could set that up as an item on the storefront too, and then people could pay online for that and pick it up at our table.
Yes, if you have something out on the storefront, spending your merchandise, you can do, if you have a table, when you can, checks and cash, but you can also sell out on the storefront as well. So yeah, that is
great option for pickups.
Yes, yes. Oh, I do want to, yeah, as we talk about that, there is a fee with using the storefront. It is not anything that Boso assesses. It's what the banks assess for the credit cards. Each credit card has a fee. When we first started doing this, I was amazed at how many different fees are associated with different cards. So we do what we call a rounded fee that's assessed to your account every month if you have e-commerce income. It averages to be between 1% and 3% at the very highest. So it's a very minimal expense, and it is assessed to the student organization, not to the purchaser. So just make sure you do keep that in mind too, especially if you're selling merchandise. You know, if you're only marking it up 50 cents, make sure you give yourself a little bit of leeway so you're not losing money on that.
Thanks. When it comes to charity accounts, what if the total amount we're trying to raise is less than $100? Do I have to set up a charity account?
No, because you do have the option. You're still going to be tagged on the activity form to get in touch with me. And I will discuss with whoever is in charge of the event what you think you're doing, especially Skip a Meals. They're great, but they do not generate a ton of money. So I mean, we'll touch base via email, but if I think you're not going to raise more than $100, then no, because you have the option to donate from your general funds $100 plus any local dues you have collected for that school year. So there's no point in going to all that extra work if it's going to fall within that realm anyway. So good question.
So you talked about pulling the statement when you your bank statement. Would that be the same as creating an overall expense report?
I mean, you can pull the statement and you can export it, but it's not really an expense report. This just shows you your activity that has happened. If you're trying to do an expense report where you're trying to budget your income and expenses, that is a little bit different. But you can, when you pull that statement, you can export it into, to me, it's a little messier when you export it into like an Excel or CSV, but you can sort it then by different income and expense codes. So it is, but it isn't. Not really a straight answer on that one. But like I said, it shows all your activity that has happened since the date you pulled it, your deposits, any payments, any transfers in and out. So if you would transfer from your student organization to another student organization for an event or whatever the case may be, it'll show all your transfers. Any internal billings, like if you would go do something at the co-rec and you receive a billing from the co-rec, that will come directly into us once a month, and you'll see that as a debit on your account. And the same as if you have any credit income, which we do every 6 months, we run interest. So if you've earned interest on your account, that's going to show up as the credit in your account. So you just kind of have to go through and read it. we have very limited character space on our descriptions, so we try to put in there as best we can. If you have questions on anything, you can always call our office though too, and see if we can find some more backup for it and clarify it for you.
Okay, so it sounds like that bank statement is definitely like a start to building an expense report.
Yes.
Can you donate money from your SOGA budget?
No.
Okay.
No, your SOGA funds are for your event. We do have student organizations that use SOGA or SFAB funds to pay for their event, which in turn is a charity event. Any money raised from the event can be donated, but your actual SOGA SFAB award, no, it cannot be donated anywhere else. If you do not use them, it has to go back to SOGA and SFAB.
Only people who have access to the COOL system is the president, treasurers, and advisors. Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, let me back up a little there too. If you are doing an e-commerce storefront item, especially for an event, and you have an event chair or something along that line, if president or treasurer emails, usually myself, we can add an individual as an e-commerce officer. They would have access to all the incoming information in e-commerce. They would not have access to the banking portion itself.
So when we're filling out an activity planning form, we see that income and expenses section. What are some, do you know any common mistakes that student orgs typically make on there? Or what do I need to know if I'm gonna have expenses or income?
The most common mistake is they don't fill it out. And we will be reading through the activity planning form that says you're going to be doing this, this, and this, providing games. There's no income and expense. So we're going to kick it back and ask, okay, how are you paying for your games? How are you paying for your food? Where are these funds coming from? So if you just give it, I mean, you can most definitely, if you have like a budget sheet for your event, attach that. That is wonderful. That just shows us anything you're anticipating coming in. If you're doing ticket sales, entry fees, anything like that. What we need to know is by the time your event is done, you have enough funds to pay for your expenses that you're going to incur. So as much information as you can put on there. Like I said, if you're going to do an entry fee, we need to know what they are and how much. If you are doing ticket sales, we need to know that. And especially right now, how are you collecting these funds? Okay. Expenses, even if you think they're minor, list them just so we know you're aware that you will have expenses.
I want to also reiterate from like the SAO side. So the only people who automatically have access to submit an activity planning form are the president and the treasurer. They can assign other people the role by editing their roster to give people access to submit activity planning forms. So it doesn't have to just all kind of fall on yourselves. But if, for example, you have an events person who is going to be submitting your activity planning forms, and it's an activity planning form with a lot of expenses, or it can be very complicated financially, that person can actually submit the activity planning form and then request that someone be added to it just by typing into the comments and leaving that person's name and email address. So I do want to put that out there, especially if, as the treasurer, you want to be in there a little bit more. So if I want to pay for our organization's website, is there a way to put the COOL account on the website so it can be paid straight from COOL to the website?
No, so you're referring more like an automatic withdrawal payment? No, you can't do that. Your student organization account is one of 900 plus accounts in our one checking account. We just have you all as sub accounts. So no, which is actually even connected to the Purdue University account. So no, you cannot put in a bank account routing information for an automatic payment on a website.
Or anything else, really. Now,
yes, or anything else.
Now, if I had a vendor who created an invoice for me, could I then ask Boso to pay that invoice?
Yes, you would just upload it in the Cool system and we would process that payment.
What other types of funding opportunities are there out there? And if I asked a college to donate money to my organization and they agreed, how would that work?
Funding opportunity, there's Office of Engagement funding, which is more if you're going to do like a community service type event, is more what they gear towards. If you're asking your college to donate to your organization, basically what you need to do is get in touch with our office. Kathy DeFord, our accounting person, will work with that college business office, and those funds will be transferred internally within Purdue. So we don't write checks to other Purdue entities, so we can work with that to get those funds transferred directly into your account. Funding opportunities, I will say there's not an overabundance of them, but you can look into like crowdfunding, the Purdue crowdfunding, which I had a meeting with Zoe earlier today from SAO, and I guess they're looking at maybe possibly changing platforms on that. So, but there still will be an opportunity there. There's just different fundraisers, like I said. Skip-a meals don't raise a ton of money, but they're out there. Any kind of merchandise sales. You can reach out to alumni sponsors and say, hey, we're trying to raise money for equipment, your event, whatever the case may be. And you'll get a lot of sponsors that way. Alumni tend to donate. So just opportunities like that.
There is, for a lot of these SOGA questions, there's actually a kind of Q&A video that we did with the SOGA chair on our Instagram and our IGTV. So definitely check that out. And then there is another one that we did with Martia that talks about some funding opportunities. So check those two out. And our YouTube, our Instagram, all great places to look for videos. And you can always email us and we can direct you to them too. But we will be uploading and developing some more content around that. So when purchasing with SOGA funding, does the receipt need to be from prior to the funding period ending, or do we need to complete the reimbursement process before the end of the spending period?
Your purchase has to be within the time frame of your funding period. Especially if you're getting down to the last day, you do need to complete everything at least 30 days after your SOGA funding period. But if you purchase, say funding period, I'm not even going to go with the dates right now. Say your funding period ended today, and you purchase something today, but you don't get it into the Cool system until next week. We're not going to deny that payment because it's not in time. It just, the purchase has to be made within the funding period.
Is there any specific things that the treasurer needs to do after the SOGA funding period has ended?
Whoever is in charge of their final report will need to do that. And you can pull that information. I don't know what all is required in the final report. I know I had one group call me one day last week and they were working on it and they needed their account statement. But again, you can pull that account statement. So you can pull your SOGA account statement to show all your purchases. And I don't know if SOGA final report has a place to upload that. Like I said, I'm not real familiar with their final report. But make sure you do follow that through because I know that can ding you if you apply next round if you haven't completed your final report.
SOGA and SFAB both have boiler link pages that are full of information. The one for SOGA does have the different funding periods in there, the guidelines, which are fantastic. And really it's all about sticking to those. The most important things after the funding period closes is, make sure that before the funding period closes, make sure that activity planning form is in and things are being recorded and in there. When that funding period closes, make sure you're getting all your receipts, reimbursements, that kind of stuff in. Like Kelly said, 30 days, and definitely the final report. And if you're working with SFAB, that mid-year report. super important because that can determine whether or not you will continue to have access to these grants. So that is a lot of paperwork that both boards need. So I know with SOGA last year, we had a few orgs who didn't get in their final reports on time, and they were ineligible for SOGA in the future for at least 1 year. So very, very important that you're following those guidelines and rules.
And in regards to your final report for your SOGA or SFAB, if you have done something where you're going to receive that internal billing, again, like I said, if your event was held at the COREC, you had anything through Elliott, anything like that, it can sometimes take 2 months, depending on the date of your event, for that to process all the way through accounting to get to us to post to your account. But you will have an estimated of what those expenses are going to be. You should have from when you booked your reservation and all that. You can include, I mean, just make sure you include that. And then because I am the one that closes out SOGA accounts, and I go through and I make sure, okay, yep, your event was held at Elliott or whatever the case may be. I make sure that expense has been posted. If not, your SOGA may not actually close out 30 days. Your funding may not close out 30 days after the event because it just takes some time for everything to come into us. Just make sure you've done your part. But any external bill or any internal billings, like I said, will take some time to come into us as well.
And Kelly, tell us where you're located.
I am in the Kroc Center in room 365 in the Boso office.
So if you've ever come up to SAO and you've gone to the front desk, you look to the left.
You see us.
So super accessible.
We're right there.
Yeah. And Kelly, if a student wanted to set up a meeting with a Boso representative, how would they do that?
We don't have, like you all do, like an open, so just shoot boso@purdue.edu an email, and then whoever you need to connect with will reach out to you and figure out a mutual time and get a meeting set up for you. Or you can call the office, 494-6724.